What's up, world? The Intelligent Hoodlums back again for Hoodlum Culture on the Thursday. One more day before Friday. Web's interesting developments in the Clark County School District yesterday that we will kind of go over. I am here in my auxiliary man cave because we're having some work done in the crib. Some auxiliary man cave today. Web's what's good, man?
Uh, we were just discussing strong feelings about types of cabbage.
Yeah,
In case you were sitting there, dear viewer, thinking, "Man, I wonder what goes on behind the scenes. What kind of deep, introspective conversations do they have?" We talk about cabbage, and I said, "How can you like kimchi and not like sauerkraut?" And Mike had very strong feelings about it.
Not in the same taste profile, in the same neighborhood of taste profile at all. Sauerkraut, as I just said, is the chitlin of the German community. It is disgusting. It smells rancid. It is not good.
Oh my god, it's amazing. I would like to know in the chat, are you team kimchi or team sauerkraut?
I mean, Tim, I guess you could be on both teams, but the flavor
You totally can. Yeah.
They're different flavor profiles.
Yeah.
They're not the same thing. Like there is a stench on this piece of sauerkraut that is just like it's like the cabbage has died. That's what it smells like, and I can't get down with that. You know, kimchi is
That's amazing.
Spice to it, some punch. Sauerkraut just tastes like zombie cabbage, essentially. It's not a good look. Not a good look.
Hashtag zombie cabbage.
That's not a good look.
Hey, hello Taco Dog 40K kimchi on it. I feel betrayed.
What you betrayed for? What? What are you betrayed for? That is a very, 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 very reasonable a conclusion to make. Sauerkraut is disgusting. Again, as my grandfather, God bless him, he tried to sneak sauerkraut into our food and stuff all the time when we were kids because he used to watch us after school and like, oh, taste this, and you're like, nah, dude, you got me that. Tried to get me with that yesterday. That's not going to work, fam. It's not.
How do you sneak? I mean, I don't get me wrong. I like both kimchi and sauerkraut, but like you don't sneak sauerkraut into anything. That's like, let me sneak this durian in. You'll never know it's there.
It's one of those situations where you try to mix it in and try to blend it in. You're like, nah, it don't blend, bro. Sauerkraut does not blend. So
I just had a mental picture of a sauerkraut smoothie, and that was just not great. Not even I would get on board with that. Sauerkraut 9. Okay, I feel a little less betrayed. Okay, like, I'll give you the 2%. It takes a special person. Where my German homies at?
No, I mean, there's like so. I'm thinking back to Berlin when we were in Berlin. There's very little German food. I was like, oh wow, this is just amazing. Like it's all heavy food. Like there's no like German nuance. It's all like the language, German language tells you all you need to know about their cuisine as well, right? It's like this rough, gruff, meat, potatoes, more meat, more cabbage. Like it's like, nah, bro. Like, that's deep. And I'm just not that type of eater. So anyway.
So, for folks tuning in who are like, I didn't know I was signing up for a food video podcast stream thing. I mean, you're not, but sometimes we get off track.
We're foodies, so I mean, it is what it is.
That is facts.
Now, again, it's kind of to mirror yesterday, very big bombshell was dropped in terms of, we're going back to school 5 days a week in April, like rather quickly. And that's popping off soon. And we got hybrid popping on Monday for K3 friends. And then everything goes to like open the borders on Monday, in April the 6th, right after spring break. So if you were someone who's preparing for this eventuality, what is the chemistry?
We like to target a niche market. I mean, we only talk about cabbage on this stream.
I mean, it may actually be a growth industry at this point.
Could be cabbage so, futures.
In terms of like, what kind of strategy should you be instilling at this point? What kind of systems perhaps might you want to put in place to ensure that there is going to be no normal? There's not going to be we go back to how it was before COVID. And I think we were both in agreement, Webbs, that if that is this philosophy that you're taking, you're going to be, very quickly disappointed. But as we tend to do, we're going to start with our ask us a software developer question here, and yeah, Web's our topic for today: doing double duty, the hybrid type concept, and as a software developer, yeah, that's one of the things perhaps that you've run into once or twice. So. As a software developer, how is it possible for you to think about like this idea of being in more than one place at one time? Because one of the at least the ideas that are being floated for classroom teachers right now is this: you will stream while you're teaching your classroom, the people in front of you in the classroom, and you will somehow manage this magically because you're an amazing person who has these like Houdini like abilities. As a software developer, like what does that look like in your world, perhaps?
First of all, I just have to chuckle at the word duty because I haven't been able to do that in like 5 years.
I mean,
Duty. Anyway,
duty.
now that I've gotten that out of my system, I have two answers for this, sort of, two classifications of answers. Answer number one is you can't. You can't be in two places at once. So if you get double booked for a meeting, you can attend one, like you can't attend both. You have to say no to things, right? So that's half my answer. Second answer is you can somewhat be in multiple places if you do things like use automation or I have a couple of specific examples, like record yourself and then share that out. Which is actually a common strategy that we use a lot of times. We'll record a meeting so that someone can go back and watch it later. Also, like, I got to do something about like my box situation over here. I just realized like that's not great.
It's like
but anyway,
it's a real podcast.
It's true.
This is
That's
real
true.
life. It's not,
this is raw.
This is mad raw.
Look at my stack of deliveries. Yay.
Man.
Anyway, I digress. So that's the other piece of it is like some of it is you have to just say no to certain things. Like certain things are going to be let go. They're not going to happen. And you just have to come to accept that. But I think on the other side of it, you can to also sometimes duplicate yourself. Apparently there is a service where you can just hire people to do things for you, but I don't think that necessarily applies in the situation we're talking about. Anyway, so the situations I'm thinking about where I've used automation and video recording. One of the things is like on my team, we have, common rituals. We have retrospectives. We have a thing called show and tell where we share information that is relevant to, just general knowledge sharing. And there's two things I've set up in Slack to remind us about those things. So often from retro, we end up with action items. And so I set up you can use the Slack bot and you can say, hey, Slack bot, remind me of this thing at this time. And so I set up a reminder I think it's every Friday. That's like, how are those action items going? And it'll just pop up at like 9 a.m. or something every Friday to remind us to check on those things. So that's the thing I don't have to think about anymore. And there's lots of tools that let you do that, like IFTTT and Zapier. And then if you wanted to get into like coding your own stuff, like there are some other options, but we won't do that. And then the other thing is video. So another situation is like we have certain procedures that we try to we have like a whole process, right, of intake of information from other teams to help us be able to solve their problems. And in order to be able to do that as efficiently as possible, there's certain information we need from them. And so we created this video that's sort of like a PSA that goes through like, hey, here are all the things that you need to know about this process. So that way it's short. It's like 3 minutes long, I think, 3 or 4 minutes long. So it is like a short little PSA. It doesn't take a lot of time to watch it. We even share like screenshots from it that have the relevant information and reshare it out like every week or so, or random, like every couple weeks when it feels relevant to share it out again. And that way we're not like saying the same things over and over again. Also, I'd say sort of tangentially to that, this isn't duplicating myself, but if I see a task that's repetitive, especially if it's a typed task, I like to use my text expansion. You can either use what's built into, if you have a Mac, it's built in, or you can pay a couple bucks a month for something like Text Expander, where it will, you can store all these like saved shortcuts that you use a lot, and then just type a couple letters and it'll spell everything out. So I have a shortcut for that. When I share that message out with the other teams, I just type a few letters and it expands out everything that I want to say. And I can ensure that it's exactly the same every time. So things like my address, I have saved to a shortcut. I have your address saved to a shortcut so that I never have to actually know what it is. I just type like Mike address and it'll just populate because I fill out forms a lot for us. So little things like that, I think are not necessarily a way to duplicate yourself, but it gets you pretty close and saves you enough time that you, by like reclaiming that time, you can now put it someplace else. So that would be my software developer response. I don't know if it's even specifically software developer-y.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are like just like 21st century skills type situation at this point. Like,
I'd agree.
I wouldn't say that those are so like I was like, yeah, I can kind of see how you would use that in the class. Like, I didn't see those as niche um, solutions to problems. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh, the text expansion thing I used when I was in the classroom, because let me tell you, when you create a template for report card comments and all you have to do is like change the pronouns and change the name and input the score, it makes it way faster. So I'm not retyping the same thing. I don't have to copy paste. It will actually prompt me to fill in each of the bubbles. Oh, that report card comment shortcut alone probably saved me so much time. I could flip through report card comments in like 30 minutes with that shortcut.
indeed. So I did it with report card comments. I did with PDFs with Adobe Acrobat and just using the the editor, the PDF editor, building the entire comment out and just being able to just edit and take the drop menus and just boom 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 boom, boom, boom done.
Exact same thing with text expander, yeah.
Be out for homes. So yeah, so I mean I think those things are not only like viable strategies for a classroom, but I think there's not anything there that's super high tech that if I was somebody who wasn't a tech forward person that would be intimidated by the text expander. It's again built into the Mac. There is a service. How much is it a month? The text expander.
Yeah, the text expander service is like $4 a month, I think, but it saves me like 30 minutes of time or something ridiculous. Granted, a lot of that is typing hashtag thanks Microsoft, but still, I find it to be a very useful tool, and I think especially when you're talking about teachers have to replicate so much stuff, like being able to, and let me just, I know this wasn't the topic necessarily, but one of the reasons I like text expander beyond the what Mac offers built in for text expansion is because text expander does things like I can type out !DS and it'll give me a date stamp. So it'll do like 02/21/21 or whatever the date is. You can do I have a shortcut that's TTIME and it'll give me the current time. Which I have to date timestamp things a lot in what I do. So that's a really useful tool for me. It allows you to do like these relative things. Like I can type !next wed, WED, and it'll give me the date for next Wednesday. So those kinds of calculations you don't get with the default text expansion that comes with a Mac, which is one of the reasons I actually like paying for text expander, which I'll share in the chat, but it's not a sponsored thing. It just happens to be a tool that I like to use.
Super dope. I mean, I think just in terms of like me thinking about my process as a specialist going back to the into the school, like it is going to be very interesting just trying to manage 800 and some odd kids once we go back in April and where all those students are, etc. If I was a classroom teacher, especially a classroom teacher of students who had Chromebooks, one of the things that I would definitely do would be I would go and start looking at Google Keep. For the example, let's go and do that. Bada bing. Now, why would I deal with Google Keep? Now, one of the things that I would very, very much be interested in if I was a classroom teacher is your days are probably mirror images of one another in terms of your schedule, right? You're going to do this at this time, and then they're going to do something else, and they're going to do something else, and do something else. You also are going to have a either immediately or eventually you're going to have a division between the students that you need to serve. There are going to be some in front of you and some online at some point, right? So how do you keep everyone on schedule in terms of what you're supposed to do or not supposed to do? You could use Google Calendar. You could use a number of other tools. But I think Google Keep is super easy for this in that you can build a checklist very simply and share it with people. And that's simply what I would do first. So great. I'm going to create a note here. Take a note. Wonderful. Once I put the note inside that piece, great, fine, dandy. What am I going to do? I'm going to sit there and say, show check boxes. So write, eat your breakfast. Great. Do your math.
It's never a thing I need to be reminded of. Today was oatmeal, by the way, in case, people were wondering.
Now, all those things are there. Great, fine, dandy. I can add collaborators, as many collaborators as necessary to this note. So all of the kids could be collaborators on top of the thing. I'm going to cancel that right now. All right, great. I can remind myself, given a time and a date, to do these things. And when go ahead, Webs.
Oh, you could also add like your grade level, not grade level. You could add the rest of your grade level as collaborators. You could add your supervisor as a collaborator. Like this isn't something limited to your classroom either. It can be that way. It's like a shared list of tasks and you can check them off as you go. Go ahead.
Changing the colors by giving yourself all your purple stuff are going to be the things you do in math. All your pink things are going to be the things you do in reading. Or the red things are the things you do in the morning. And the yellow-orange things are the things you do after lunch. Whatever. There are tons of ways to deal with this. And then you can copy them to Google Docs as well. So that's the other thing. Go ahead, Web.
Can you tag on Google Keep? Can you tag notes?
You can add.
You add a label. Yeah, okay. Interesting. I just switched my system in Todoist from a series of nested lists to tagging things. And I find that actually to be I so far have found it to be a superior approach to how I do my to-do items is by tagging them or labeling them versus nested lists.
So label them to whatever you want to label them. So again, math. So this is now going to be labeled in the math group. Great. So I can have all of my math deals there. But that is going to give kids a visual. It's going to give them a place to go. And if I need to, I can I can just copy those things to Google Docs. If you're going to do like an exit ticket or some kind of reflection at the end of the day, great. Did you get all your stuff done today? Yes. Mr. Lang, we got so-and-so done. I had a little bit of, it's like almost like a great way to either start your day by looking at the previous day's note. Hey, did you get all your stuff done yesterday? Nope, I didn't get this done. What are some blockers? So kind of like a stand up at the beginning of your class period in order to get kids kind of engaged and oriented for the day, or at the end to kind of reflect on your deal. And Google Keep is super not challenging to use.
So when I first started in tech and was introduced to this whole idea of stand-ups, I'd get super nervous because it felt like so much pressure to try and remember all the things I had to report on. And also like my ability to use technical vocabulary wasn't automatic yet. So it was still effortful for me to speak in a technical way. And when I first started doing stand-ups and I had to report on my work, I kept an index card or a notebook where I would write down like all the things I wanted to say so that it made it a lot more accessible for me to be able to pull the vocabulary I needed. It was like a nice little scaffold. And you can use Google Keep or any kind of to-do manager or even a doc or something where students can keep their notes as they're giving their update in stand-up so that they know like, hey, these are the things I want to report on. And even throughout their day to make notes of, oh, tomorrow I want to mention this because I want to get somebody's feedback on it or something. We do that all the time. Like we'll dump stuff in chat, like the way that our stuff is divided. We have a separate chat for when we do stand up. And so a lot of times you'll see throughout the day, we'll dump things there as reminders for the next day. Like, hey, we want to talk about this topic or that topic. So it's a real world skill to be able to, write that stuff down and have it. It's not a crutch in any way. I saw an interesting discussion in a social media circle I'm in, where this lady was going to a job interview and wasn't sure about having a notebook, taking a notebook with her, because she's like, oh, would it be okay if I took a notebook? And that shouldn't be viewed as a crutch of any kind. I think that's actually a smart thing to do. And interestingly enough, she ended up getting the job and also got complimented on bringing her notebook with her. So, it's a practical skill to have.
Other thing in that same vein is Google Sheets, right? Again, like your Clark County School District, Google Sheets is something that every kid has access to because they all have Gmails, right? And you don't have to, we're going to talk a little bit more about functional everything. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to have colors all over it. I don't care about any of that stuff. All I care about is you can do this. I hit that insert button and insert a what? A checkbox. Click. Do your work.
I think an important thing to kind of zoom up a little bit on and look at the bigger picture. It's like the whole, the title of this episode is Double Duty, doing double duty, right? And we're talking about hybrid. We're talking about going back into the classroom face to face. And yet what we're presenting you with may not seem like why would I need this if I'm going to be back face to face? But I think if there is a fatal mistake to be made, it's assuming that that plan will actually happen that way. Because as we've seen across the country, generally when schools go back to hybrid or face-to-face, there's almost immediately an outbreak of some kind, and then they have to go back to virtual. And that's been part of the frustration about hybrid and face-to-face approaches, is that schools get shut down and there's this back and forth. There's not any consistency. And as we all know, kids don't exactly thrive in an inconsistent world. So the big message here is just continue to be virtual and happen to be in the same place. Because if you have consistent practices and you're not relying on that being face-to-face, then if it gets upended, you don't have to worry about adjusting. It'll be exactly the same. They'll be able to not miss a beat and just keep going because all their stuff is virtual. All their stuff is accessible.
I think we're leaning toward competency, right? So competency, making this person feel like they're able to accomplish what you asked them to do, and setting them up. Again, the whole idea is your user should feel like they are competent. They should feel like they're successful. You're building those scaffolds in to guide your user to a certain destination. We shouldn't celebrate the failure of the user. The whole idea should be everyone should be able to accomplish the task that we have for our lessons, right? And so kind of to that first deal there, where what exactly we were talking about hybrid in the sense that of a lot of school districts, they're talking about doing your job both in person and online. But what would be your definition of the hybrid?
Oh, I mean, I think kind of I just said it. I think it is possible to set it up in such a way that you don't have to fundamentally do much that's different. I actually think the most challenging thing to juggle is going to be feedback in the classroom if not all the kids have headphones accessible. Because really, if you set it up so that it's basically the same, mirroring your having all the students that are virtual in a Google Meet. I forget who mentioned that. And then sharing on your screen. I think the biggest pitfall is going to be if you're trying to point a camera at your whiteboard or smart board and work from there, you're going to have a bad time. Your online kids are going to have a bad time. But I think there are a few. So hybrid by definition is I have kids in my room and I am also teaching kids that are not in my room and are online. And from what I've seen, the assumption is you have to teach both those groups at the same time. Ideally, I'd challenge that assumption. But let's say that you're not comfortable challenging that assumption. Then I would say, treat everybody like they're online. If one person's remote, everybody's remote, which is something I think Trello does. What do you think? How do you, because you always have a different take than I do, or you're looking at it from a different way. What is hybrid? What is hybrid to you?
Hybrid doesn't exist. That's what it means.
See, I knew it. I knew it.
That it doesn't exist. I think it's a willful ploy by the powers that be to attempt to reach back into a forgotten age, right? Like the pre-COVID situation to me, we will never go back to that scenario. We will never go and have those truths be truths again. So the hybrid to me is this, oh, we're going to go and be normal again. No, you're not. So you've been given these tools that will allow students to work at their own pace. Why then would you impede that by now injecting this the power structure of you will listen to me and I will now tell you when to do what at this point, instead of teacher as facilitator as it should have been online, now teachers going back to power broker again, where we're now having to exist in the time of time again, right? In the sphere of 6 hours and 11 minutes or whatever. And, you know, you can only go as fast as your teacher lets you go, because I am going to go and I'm going to mark, nope, you can't go that fast, Bob. You're going to stay behind Mr. Lang. Previously, and we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit more in the show, you could build the structures that kid could go as fast as they wanted to, as long as the work was prepared for him. And I think that the very difficult thing that I'm having ability to reconcile with at this point is there's no such thing as teachers anymore. And I'm going to say that, and I'm going to qualify what I'm saying. When we were in school, and this is, you know, I'll be 40 years old next month, there was no internet. No internet. Like, I was totally at the mercy of my teacher, right? I had no way to go and access the information unless my teacher gave me I had to go to a library. I had to go to, and I had to physically move from my spot in her class to a library. She would see me walk out and go to the library, right? Right now, the collective knowledge of the world is a fingertip away from me. I can find people who are far more competent in whatever my teacher is teaching me than my teacher is anytime I want.
And I think that is scary to some teachers and feels like, you know, this wasn't what I trained for. So what do I do now? If I'm not the person that's the keeper of knowledge, what is my job? And I agree with you. I think it's facilitator. Like, you get comfortable that you don't need to know everything. That's definitely a thing I have to do in my job. Like, well, I mean, I'm never going to know everything. This is not going to happen.
My favorite book is Dante's Inferno. It's my favorite book since I was a little kid. All right. First of all, I liked it because it was like this long, like, battle rap record, right? Dante is like going at all the people he hated, and he put them all in hell, and he's walking past them laughing at him, essentially, right? And I was like, oh man, this is like this. He was like the Tupac of his day, right? It was like I was super deep. But the most interesting character in that story, as I became older and I started reading the cantos a little bit deeper, is Virgil, right? So you have this classic poet that he uses as his facilitator. I definitely hear you teach in terms of feeling restricted and whatnot. But I think one of the things that, if we start to look at how our jobs have evolved, right? It is no longer the keeper of knowledge, because there are far more competent people in whatever you're talking about than you are. That's not we're not there to be gatekeepers. We're there to be travel companions, right? We're there to walk through the gates of hell with our students and say, okay, cool. I've been here before. I know what that looks like. Oh, I have no. Let's go and investigate it a little bit deeper, so we both are learning. Or, you know what? We need to collaborate on this little piece in order to figure out some truths about the world. And the truths about the world shouldn't be limited to what Mr. Lang knows, because again, Mr. Lang doesn't know everything. The internet is full of people who might have, but here's how we discern about good information on the internet, bad information on the internet. People who we can look at as you're not inside circles of hell. I'm using it as a metaphor.
I mean, for some people they are.
I'm using that as a metaphor. So, to me, it's more of how do you teach a 21st century student how to navigate the world in which they're living in, while making sure that you deal with um, a situation in which information right now is constantly being added to in terms of the human experience. Right, we get more information now than at any other point in human history. We have access to more information now. How do we make people savvy uh, uh, consumers of information, savvy producers of information, and savvy collaborators? And I think that to me is what the teacher has evolved into. Not you will do what I tell you to when I tell you to, because that's my job. I don't. I fundamentally disagree with that, and that's why I think the hybrid thing is again this. People are still trying to hold on to this old style of teaching when that needs to die.
Yeah, I said in a tweet last week or the week before that, like the way that I know that we're not actually interested in making change is we've looked at no other ways of improving distance learning besides going back face to face. There are lots of things we could do to make it better. We haven't given teachers the proper training or resources or tech literacy knowledge in order to be successful. We haven't given students the proper access to the resources that they need, like actual high-speed internet, devices that can create meaningful content. And so like we haven't actually invested in what is possible with distance learning. We've just been so eager to like go back to face, as though, and a lot of people imply that worked well for everyone. It did not. There's a lot of students and a lot of teachers that didn't work for lots of reasons. But we're not interested in trying to iterate on what distance learning looks like. We just want to go back face to face. Even like one of my biggest questions about the students and families who have chosen to stay distanced is how is testing going to work? So like we've seen what happens with the MAPS test, right? So we know that we suddenly have geniuses with the MAPS test because obviously there's support from the parents. As a parent, I'm not going to sit there and watch my kid like get upset and cry over some ridiculous test. Like, why would I put them through that trauma? We shouldn't be either, but that's a whole other episode.
But we know better, Webs. So your
your
driver's test, for example, right? Your driver's test.
Yeah.
Everybody takes a driver's test who has a license, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a written test, right? That just the basic laws of there's an actual performance task you have to be able to deal with. And this is not technology. This is not the internet. This is like people been doing this. This car's been around, right? So there's a performance task that says that is great. You know the laws and the theory of how this thing is done. Prove it to me on the actual road. So. Mm-hmm. We do not function that way in schools. It is, here's a test, you're either A, B, C, D, E. Oh, you got an F. Okay, when do I actually apply what you are claiming that you taught me so that you can see, look, I built this and this works, or look, I performed in this way. There's never the mechanical tasks that students are asked to produce are so flimsy and far between generally that it becomes laughable, right? You know, it is easier for me to give you the multiple choice test and say, okay, cool, Joey got a 60. Okay. What does that actually say about Joey? What fundamentally does it say about Joey? Where's the actual road course for Joey? That's great that you gave Joey the written assessment. Where's the road course for Joey? Because there are a lot of us who do very great on the written assessment. When we get on the road, we have no idea what we're doing.
The opposite is true too.
Facts.
There are a lot of folks, my brother is like that. Trying to take a written test stresses him out. But when it comes to the practical test, he can pass it with flying colors. So like, and I think that distance learning has brought out the flaw in those types of tests. Because I've seen a ton of like TikToks, social tweets and things about kids who have figured out developer tools in a browser, and that the developer tools will often tell you which answer is the correct answer in order to flag it as like, yes, this was correct, or no, it wasn't, with different like buttons or highlighting or whatever. So if you can Google the answer, is it really that meaningful anymore?
Do I care about you memorizing dates? No. Do I care about you memorizing the president's United States? No. Do I
No.
care about you memorizing the capitals of the country? No. Like, this is not that it's worthless information. This is information that is very quickly accessed through any number of means of devices that we have. Now, what can you do with information to produce something new? That is the test to me of whether you understand something or not. Can you take? We opened the show with cabbage. If you understand the flavor profile of cabbage and what it can you cook a meal using cabbage and kielbasa and jalapenos? Now, that's going to determine to me. Now, I know that cabbage is a vegetable. That is great, Bob. I want you to cook a meal using cabbage and highlighting cabbage as the mainstay of that meal.
Knowledge is knowing that cabbage is a vegetable. Wisdom is knowing not to pair it with jelly beans.
Bada bing. Bada bing. All right. Or that sauerkraut is disgusting and kimchi is not. That's also wisdom.
Don't hate.
It's also wisdom. All right. So that's the hybrid discussion, I guess. Like, what function over everything. And this is like one of my super passionate things, Webs. We continue to go back to people want to make stuff pretty. I don't care about it being pretty, fam, if it doesn't work, right? And we went through the pretty phase with the canvas courses with the magic buttons all over the place that seemed like confusing and stuff, and assumed that kindergartners were actually literate people. You know, it was very interesting, like some of the iterations of stuff. But what do we mean by function over everything, Webs?
The teacher's all over it today.
Teachers on what? Uh-oh.
Oh, what do we got here?
Counterpoint.
A Hungarian layered sauerkraut and minced pork recipe that's generations old. Sweet, I have weekend homework.
Indeed. But when we say function over everything, what does that mean to you?
Oh my God. So I know I've mentioned this before, but this always reminds me of writing code and mistakes of my youth all 4 years ago. And that is like, I would try to do all the things at once. I would try to like make it elegant and make sure that it was the most efficient it could be and whatever. And I'd get so wrapped up in that I would forget about solving the problem in the first place. And I had like, as I learned better, I would like, okay, how can I just get code that works and solves my problem? Then I'll go back and like, can I make this more concise? Can I like, distill it down, take out a couple steps? Am I repeating myself anywhere, whatever? Then I'll go back for a third pass and be like, now can I actually make it? Is there like a more elegant way to solve this that maybe doesn't require as much processing time or doesn't loop over my iteratable, as like a bunch of time, like but it would, each individual pass would be a refinement instead of trying to do it all at once. Because if you try to make it pretty first, but it doesn't work, then it doesn't matter that it's pretty.
Facts. But also, like, I don't ever.
And it's an exercise in frustration.
I don't care if it's pretty ever. Like, let's solve the problem first. Now, again, your legs are cold. I take a shower curtain and wrap my legs. Are my legs cold anymore? Nope. Is it the most elegant and pretty thing in the world? Nope. Are my legs warm? Yes. All right, fine. We can figure out how to make pants later on. Right now, the shower curtain works. So, in terms of like the thing, I think the stress that I think teachers put on themselves is this: it has to look like teacher paid teachers with the little stupid little characters on it, and it jumps.
Pinterest disease.
Yeah, like, dude, I don't care nothing about that. And you end up giving a situation in which, but it's not pretty, and it doesn't have the curly Q font, and okay, no one cares. Now,
that's not entirely true. You do care about aesthetic, but you care about aesthetic when it's the right time to care about aesthetic.
And you care about the aesthetic once you have the function down to a freaking science. When you've got go ahead, Webs.
Oh, I was just going to say, an illuminating conversation we had over the weekend. So I'm going to be totally forthright, and I'm sure many of you know this already, but Mike is a far better like designer than I am. I do okay. Mike's way better than I am. And so I was asking him over the weekend, and this is part of the reason why it's important to have a PLN, a professional learning network. I was asking him like, how does your thought process work? Like, do you have any tips for me, ways that I can improve the products that I make? And so he walked me through like his thinking. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was that as he plans out stuff, he just gets the words down first and like the big concepts of what he wants to convey. And then we'll go back, and always starts in black and white, which I thought was really fascinating too. And then we'll go back and say, okay, now what do I want this to look like? What icons do I want to add? What images do I want to add? That always comes at the end, but the ideas are always there first, and the structure of the ideas are there before anything else. And that way you're not trying to do make it pretty and make it functional at the same time, and then you just give yourself a headache.
Yeah, it's always what is the problem, and how do I solve the problem as quickly as possible? Boom, boom, boom. Great. Now, do I have time to go and add the flourishes and stuff on there? Yeah. If I don't, then will this work to solve my problem right now? Absolutely, positively. But one of the things that I always think about, and my dad is one of the wisest people that I know. I used to play basketball in my backyard with my pops. And of course, you're watching NBA games, and the guys are going between your legs and spinning and stuff, and throwing the ball off the back of the rim and stuff. And I go in and I try those things, and my father would go block them. I mean, I'm a little kid; he would block the shots, and like he would like emphatically block the shots. And he would say one word: practicality. And that's always practicality. How do you practically solve the problem? And then how can you go and do all the sexy between the legs stuff and whatnot? But first, you have to be able to put the ball in the basket. If you can't put the ball in the basket, it doesn't matter that you did. There's a term if you played basketball on any level, $1 million move, 10-cent finish, right? Hey, it looked really good going between your legs and spinning around, and you shot the ball and you missed it. Like, what was the point? You did a lot of extra work for no reason. And so, with that kind of as the idea, one of the things to kind of simplify your hustle, I am not a Jamboard fan, not in any way, shape, or form. But Jamboard is a simple and elegant solution to a number of problems you're going to have with hybrid. Now, one of the expectations is that you're going to be teaching in front of people, and they're going to be people who are watching you like a captive studio audience. How do you still keep that captive studio audience engaged enough that those people have some tie-in and some buy-in to what you're talking about, are able to be heard when you need them to be heard, and can let you know what's going on? So let's take that parking lot idea, right? That idea where, like, if you've ever been in any of those boring conferences when they're like, hey, you have to here's some sticky notes, and you put the parking lot. If you got a question, don't bother the person. Put it on the sticky note and walk it up and put it on the parking lot. So let's take that. And
That always felt so much more disruptive than if you were to just ask the question. And they never got to the parking lot. It was always like, oh, that's right. We have parking lot questions. We'll get to those later. Like, I'm never putting anything in the park. The parking lot is where things go to die.
Facts. But one of the things that you could do is, a lot of people are, oh, yeah, we're going to use a smartboard. Now, first of all, remember the smartboard does not have a camera on it. So you can mirror your Google Meet on the smartboard. The kids still can't see what's going on in the classroom because there is no camera on the smartboard. So that sounds good in theory, but it doesn't work. However, if you put the Jamboard on the smartboard instead, right? Give all the kids access to the situation. They can go and put their own issues here.
I'm going to share too in the chat. Using all that information Mike gave me, I had been working on this paper to talk about how to work your way through a virtual conference, because one of the other things we do is we help people move their conferences online. And I applied that to that document. So you can kind of see like how, I don't know what you'd compare it against, but you can kind of see like the output of some of the ideas that I had. And next to that, the other thing that's on the main page of our website, there is a post about how you can take things from virtual event planning and apply them to your classroom in order to improve virtual experiences in your classroom.
Big facts. Now, what I would do is I would make 2 of these pages. I would have one, this page here, that's just for my friends who are sitting in class, and one, this page here, for my friends who are sitting online. Great. I got my deals here. If I got questions, I can go back and forth. You can put kids' names on them. You could set a background. You could do a number of things in Jamboard very, very easily, very, very simply. And you can share a Jamboard from a Google Meet. So if you're not familiar with the Jamboard situation, this is one that it can be set up like 15 seconds before you need it. Literally. Like you don't need to go do a whole bunch of planning or anything like that. Rock and roll. Take the text box. Bada bing. Kids put their stuff there. Whatever. Any number of ways you can utilize this thing in the classroom very, very quickly so that you as teacher, I can go and see, all right, cool, this is what my people are talking about. Wonderful, fine, dandy. Again, free, doesn't
Did
cost anything. Go ahead, Webs.
did you call them at homies?
At homies, yes, because they're the at homies.
Every teacher needs to adopt at homies.
Get at homies. So the at homies here, but again, this can be set up very, very quickly. Is it pretty? Nope. Will it work? Absolutely, positively. I don't have to have no flourishing fonts of magic stuff popping in here. I don't have no gifts popping in here, no videos. It just needs to be, hey, kids, if you got a question for Mr. Lane, click the sticky note. Great. You throw your sticky note in there. Wonderful. Have the kids throw their name in there or whatever it is. All right. Wonderful. Very, very easy way to do what you need to do.
I'm going to also say that if you are watching and you are not a teacher, but you are in some other line of work, this is also a great way to make meetings engaging, is giving people an opportunity to post their ideas on like a shared board of some kind. That way they keep their like focus actually in the meeting because they have some piece of interaction. Like that's something I've noticed about being outside of education, although education meetings were kind of like this too. Do as we say, not as we do. That there is a lack of engagement sometimes. And it's not through the fault of the facilitator because not every meeting facilitator has an education background, but like that is a small thing you can do. And I think I have a blog post about this on my website. But anyway, yeah, so just little tiny pro tip.
So Jamboard is cool. I'm a Padlet person. If you do not have Padlet, first of all, you get 3 Padlets for free. And all you would need is 1. Make a Padlet, back channel, select, bada bing. Now the back channel is going to give you the ability to have your friends say, but instead of this situation, I can say, cool, I want to add some flourishes here, right? So I want some gifts. I'm going to say, bada bing, Mr. Lane, where's my money? Now I have a situation in which me and Mr. Lane can go and have this conversation on here. Everybody can pop in and do what they need to do. Now, this is going to keep all my stuff here. It'll be fine. I can embed this in a website. I can embed this inside of my Canvas course. I can embed this wherever, link it, or whatever. I can have this up on my smartboard as well. So as kids are saying, hey, I don't understand what you're talking about or whatever, this is popping up immediately. Kids can also, they can draw, record their screen. So if they need to say, hey, Mr. Lang, I have no idea how to do this thing. Let me show you what my screen looks like. They can voice record inside here. They can film themselves yelling, screaming, demanding their money from you or whatever. They can take a picture. They can Google search inside here, link anything, and they can upload anything from the computer. Padlet is a far superior tool than Jamboard is, in my opinion, because it's far greater a tool in terms of the number of applications you have in your classroom, and you get 3 for free. You would only need 1 as your back channel. Just keep the same back channel the entire time if you're a classroom teacher. Webs.
Also, accessibility wise, it's far superior, right? Because if I have like students who are new to English, who maybe don't have the language either from typing it or I guess you wouldn't handwrite it, but like they have the ability to just record their voices as a response, which is great. For students who maybe need more of a visual, like you have access to that. If they want to do a video and get super creative with it, then they have that ability. But it makes it accessible to far more students than you would have by just typing it.
Big facts. And so I am a Padlet person. I pay for the service every year because I think it is one of the most vital and vital tools to how I do my job. So I hated that they went paid, but that didn't stop me from getting the tool. So Padlet is super cool that way. The other thing is your Canvas course, right? Again, Canvas to me is going to be the backbone of, if you're thinking about April 6th as the, if you're K-5, all those kids could potentially be in your classroom. I don't want to lose the ability to do the competency-based learning that the kids perhaps were doing when they were home. So I don't need to have some homepage. It's, oh my goodness, it's the sexiest thing in the world. Just add the modules. Now, again, I don't really care about it being pretty. So I'm going to click that first assignment. Wonderful. Now, that's just a page there. Ideally, if I had, too much to do this, I would add a bunch of videos and this and that and this other thing. But one tool that really has been embraced by teachers online has been the Nearpod, right? So the Nearpod has been something that has been embraced by millions now. Nearpod, if it had a stop, Padlet is, I want to say it's $50 a year, $49.99. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Webs, can you Google that?
I can.
Appreciate you. All right, so I'm gonna log in here real quick. Again, we're talking about function over form. We're not talking about super sexy stuff here. We're just talking about getting stuff on the page. So here's our Nearpod thing. All right. All I'm interested in is that student-paced hustle. You probably have a lot of these student-paced things that are done. I'm gonna let the kid work at their computer at their own pace, given whatever standards I'm helping the kids out with. Student-paced, great. I'm gonna use that same one. Share. I want the embed code from there, or if you're still using Google Classroom, wonderful. I would, in this sense, deal with Canvas as the hustle. I'm gonna hit that embed code. I'm gonna make it a medium joint and then copy it. And I'm going right back to here. Bada bing. First assignment. I don't care that nothing else is on this page, Webs. I don't care about no introduction, no whatever. I know how to use Padlets. Know how to use Nearpods. I put all my standards in there, walk through and everything. I'm gonna click that little magic cloud up there.
Oh. So it's $10 a month if you pay monthly, which is like less than Netflix. It's $96 if you pay for the whole year. And it's $2,000 if a school wants to purchase licenses for the school. So if 20 teachers are using Padlet, it might actually be worth it to just pay for the whole school to use Padlet.
There's my Nearpod. I'm not putting anything else on this page, Webs, other than the Nearpod homes. I don't care at this point. Later on this summer, I might go back and say, yo, I want to make this look like really cool and have, videos and stuff on there. Don't care about that, fam. Save button.
I feel like iterating is something too. Like, I don't know if this is a characteristic specifically of folks who become teachers or what, but you can go back to things and improve on them like slowly, and that's fine. And I think digital resources make that way easier than like making copies, because it's really easy to fix it in one place and then everybody gets it, versus, and actually that's kind of a strategy that we use in software development too, is like, we want to be able to fix a thing in one place, not touch like 100 places to fix the same problem.
So I would simply, how to use Nearpod. So that's another thing, Webs. That's another thing. To know what you are, you have to know what you aren't. And when you realize what your strengths are, and you can play to your strengths, then a lot of the weaknesses that you might have, you never have to actually face them until you want to. And that's one of the cool things about teaching and iterating and learning is, if you're really good at one thing, like, play to your strength, fam. Like, if you got the Nearpod down pat, Nearpod it up. Like, beat the Nearpod into the ground until you have time to go and learn something else. But
yeah,
Nearpod it or Google Doc it or whatever you're doing, beat it into the ground so that while the kids are currently engaged with that, you can learn another skill and say, this is the next thing I'm going to make sure that my students are
Yeah.
engaged.
Don't feel obligated to like jump to the new thing, jump to the new thing. If you're good with Wiser, beat Wiser into the ground. If, like Mike said, you do docs or slides, beat that into the ground. Like, you can go back to it over and over and over again and just remix it by a little bit. Don't feel like you have to always go with the newest thing or have 20 different tools. We share a lot of tools because we never know what's going to resonate with a particular person or what they might need in that particular moment. But I wouldn't say take every tool we've mentioned to you over the last, however many episodes you've been watching and instigate, like, put that in place all at the same time. You're gonna like totally wipe yourself out by trying to do that. It's like when everybody starts the new year like, oh, I'm gonna diet and exercise and I'm gonna wake up at 4 a.m. and do like an hour and a half workout. Like, no, friend, you are on a recipe for burnout if you think that's a great idea.
Big facts. And so, that being the case, there are a number of other tools that we're going to talk about in this last little section here before we bounce boogie until Sunday. But the third topic here, Webbs, is
perfect. Beating Google Slides, Jamboard, and drawing demos. Great.
Bada bang. So the teachers own it. But what are tools which are high upside tools? And if you invest your time to master them, you'll be able to utilize those tools over and over and over and over again. What say you, Webbs?
I'm going to steal one that I think you would agree with and one that the teach has mentioned, which is slides. Any slide deck. So like today, I was in a meeting and we were, learning and also going over some things that we had talked about before. And I was like, oh, you know what? I can totally do like visual notes right now. Just open up a keynote slide and started adding, like, as they're talking, I'm adding little notes and then I'm adding little icons and whatever. And then when it was over, I like went back and made sure that my notes made sense and everything. And I had this really beautiful visual, like almost like a sketch note, but like digital, and a lot less work because I could basically use these little stamps in the form of the icons that already exist in Keynote. So you can use a slide deck for so many things. The document I mentioned earlier made that in Keynote. Graphics. When I want to do graphics, I make them in Keynote. Like, and you can do pretty much the same thing with slides, especially if you do an add-in, like, what's the icons one? It was free. Now it's more paid.
Noun Project.
Yep. If you add an add-on like Noun Project, you can drop like icons into there. That helps. It gives you the ability to search for images on the internet. That helps. So I think slide decks are such an incredibly powerful tool if you stop thinking about them just as slide decks. Think about them as just a blank notebook, and you can make them, you could create a notebook that your students make a copy of and they fill in the blanks just like you would a workbook. You can make them graphic design spaces. You can do infographics. You can change the size of them. You can make them long, short, tall. Like, you just have so many options and the freedom to move your text and images around and not be confined to something like a Google Doc or even Pages or Word, where it'll just like wonkily move things around in seemingly random, it makes no sense type logic. Slide decks, I think, are one of the most powerful tools we have. And I don't think we use them enough. I think we go to the document for some reason. And yep, student portfolios are a great thing. You can add links to it. Even Kinders. Yep, that was one of my first Kinder projects when I was a humanities teacher. I would have the Kinders do sentences and make little sentence books using slide decks. And I think it was Keynote at that point, but it's just the same.
Yep, I would agree, but I'm not going to talk about an actual tool. So,
of course you're not.
Asking questions is the best tool you got, right? First of all, I don't want to do no work. That's my goal as a teacher is to drink my coffee while it's hot. I already know stuff, right? So why do I have to know more stuff? I don't need to. The people in my charge are the ones got to learn stuff. So make the workers do the work. So one of my favorite rappers has a great lyric. He says, "A genius is somebody who can build an empire with somebody else's hands." That is the hustle, right? How do I get the workers to do the work and make me look like a boss, right? Fundamentally, My students are Mensa level intellects if I give them the opportunity to be. If I do the thinking for you, then certainly who is learning, Mr. Lang, and not you, right? And failure is not a problem for me. That doesn't mean you got to do it again. Yeah, not a problem, right? So I think orienting your class to this is the essential question that we're trying to solve, and how can we solve it, and having them brainstorm and crowdsource ideas, and then go into the internet again. All your kids on the internet right now, all of them. They on YouTube, they on Among Us, they on Roblox. Great. How can we do X, Y, and Z? We could use this tool. That's cool. See if it works. It didn't work. All right. What other cool tools could you use? This one. All right, cool. This kid knows this thing. This kid uses this or whatever. Great. Now the people who's supposed to be doing the work are doing the work. I've got my lesson plan and stuff out there, but in the grand schemes of things, I think like first year teachers like look at the lesson plan as if it's like this manual, this straight, this point A to point Z. Like lesson plans don't work like that, fam. If they work like that, you're not actually learning anything, right? If everything turns out the way that you planned it, what was the point? Like
It's
learning it.
like the words of Leonard Snart. Make the plan, execute the plan, watch the plan go off the rails, throw away the plan.
I mean, it's more fun just to ask a question and say, look, like we're looking at Dawood Bey right now, and Dawood Bey, if you don't know who Dawood Bey is, one of the greatest living photographers that we happen to have. Really cool dude, and did a lot of pictures about African American life. So I'm like, look, what are portraits you guys can take in of your family? I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that. There ain't no real right answer. Great. Get your camera, use Pixlr, edit the pictures. God bless America. End the lesson. Like, go forth and do some stuff. Mr. Lang is finished. I don't have to do any work because the workers are supposed to be doing the work, not me. So I think one of the things to recalibrate yourself or look at the facilitation, going back to Dante's Inferno, Dante is the corporal being. Virgil is not. Virgil's an incorporeal shade in hell. He is simply there to guide Dante, but he cannot make Dante do anything that Dante doesn't want to do. And that's the most genius part of that story. Virgil cannot physically move Dante and tell him to go this way. He can advise him on certain things, but he cannot move him. And so as we look at our instruction, the kid can go where they want. And sometimes they're going to make bad decisions. That is part of learning and it's part of life, right? So how do you go and tell the kid, hey, let's see where that goes? Oh, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? It didn't work because we were supposed to do this and that and this and that. And that definitely didn't do those things. Wonderful. Let's try some different method to do it. So not that we shouldn't be caught up in tools, but I think part of the biggest tool, in my opinion, for the modern teacher is simply understanding that it is not thy will that needs to be done, right? And looking at a situation where you have in your charge little minds that have all kind of crazy ideas about how the world works, and allowing those students to, in a structured environment, go in and pursue those ideas in order to determine the validity of those ideas, and working in concert with one another a lot of times. But
I think to speak to whether it's valid or not, right? So we act as though we act as though it's a mystery why kids get to college and their careers and then suddenly can't function. But we've spent 18 years of their lives like telling them exactly what to do and how to not fail. And really they need to be able to make mistakes and then speak to why those were mistakes and what they would do differently next time. So if we don't give them those opportunities, like where are they going to learn it?
Big facts, big facts, big facts, big facts. So last little thing that kind of like really up your hustle. If you're not a flip grid head, definitely something I would deal with in terms of very easy, high. Every kid wants to be on TV, and that's something I will like stand by forever and ever and ever. I have not seen one student, even the students that were like camera shy and stuff. Once you tell them, "Hey, nobody's going to see this but me and your classmates," it's, "Oh my goodness, Mr. Lang, I want to do," and they start getting in, and the little shy kid, peeks up. If you want to, if you whether you want to believe it or not, When I was in fourth grade, I was almost a mute. I didn't say anything to anybody. Sandy Jackson, who is at the at one point the worst teacher that I had, and at the same time the best teacher that I had, would sign me up for random stuff without my knowledge and with full compliance of my mom to go and do these, speaking engagements and stuff like that. And I would stand and be looking like a fool, right? And so, uh, don't miss opportunities to have your students step out of their cocoons. And even not pressuring people, but putting people in a position where, hey, you know what? Why don't you try this podcasting thing? Why don't you try? You might be really uber talented with it, and and you may have kids who end up with, shouting you out on TV when they're like in their 20s or their 30s, like, hey, without Mr. Jones, I would never have become this Emmy Award winning, broadcaster or whatever it is. But Flipgrid is super easy to deal with. The kinders can deal with it. The only kind of problem is on the iPads. The app has to continually be updated. That's the only kind of pain in my behind with Flipgrid. But it's just recording yourself. It's great for exit tickets. Once the kids get a hang of it, they do all kind of zany, insane stuff. The other
There's
thing,
also the possibility to like cover your face. So if a kid isn't comfortable or for whatever reason they can't share like their face on the video, you can like put a cartoon over top of it. Like you can record just your voice and have a completely different background. Like there are a lot of options even for those kids who are shy or just generally may not feel like they want to do that. So yeah, just
that situation, one of the things you could do is, I'm going to a live right now. Great. So if you're talking about what Webbs was saying, cool, great. You could upload something that's just a picture there. You could also mirror it. So if I want to have a situation where, like you said, stickers. Now I can say what I want. No one can see my face. I can clear that. You also have the ability to, once they get, like, you could cover your face with a board and just slide that all the way over. Oops. So now no one can see you at all. Like there's nothing there. So we've had some kids who were really like reticent at first, and then they start seeing what other kids are doing. They're like, nah, dude, I want to like be Tom Cruise too. All right. So that's one of the things to deal with. Gym Kit, if you're not, I'm a huge fan of the Gym Kit. And the Gym Kit now has this Gym Kit Inc., which is like this super cool blog, micro blogging site. I won't open it up because I have my kids work inside there. But
is it out of beta?
It's out of beta. It's totally available to everybody. It's $60 for the year, but it's a high school kid. The reason why he created Gym Kit Inc. is because he hated to write in school. He hated it, and so he built this kind of as it's a micro blogging. Kids can have pseudonyms. It's really cool and keeps everything set up here. It's one of the things we're going to use for our hybrid as specialists, where kids are going to have that ability to go and react and respond to things in kind of a very cool way. You could put, he's got the ability to embed YouTube videos and all. It performs like a proper blog in this nice, secure area where if you don't want to share it with anybody other than your class, you can do it. If you only want to share it with your teacher, you can do it. If you don't want to share it with anybody, you can do it. And it stays nice and secure inside that site. It is a wonderful tool, a tool that I enjoy using all the time with students. And then you've got your Kahoots and your quizzes as well. And the other half of Gym Kit functions like the Kahoot or quiz is. In terms of these deals here, like now you got to pay for some of the premium content in Kahoot. Same thing for quizzes. But you can take these and you can embed them or make them homework assignments so that kids can go at their own pace instead of just having to have that uber competitive nature. Because there has been a lot of noise on Edu Twitter about, hey, this competitiveness and kids having or feeling having some self-esteem issues because of the fact that they don't win or whatever. But you can mitigate that by making those student pace ones so the kids don't see anybody else's scores but their own, and they can they have this race against themselves rather than race against the classroom or whatever. Anything else, Webbs?
Not that I can think of.
All right, cool and cool. Final thoughts before we close this episode of the Hustle Down. Webb's final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is like, don't try to accommodate, don't plan for hybrid. Because if you plan for hybrid, you won't be ready for face to face, and you won't be ready if you go back to remote. Like, keep it remote, make us, or whatever system you devise, make sure it works in every situation so that nothing really changes. That's the probably, I think, the going to be the best way to maintain that that consistency is to not to try to come up with a system that doesn't require you, doesn't rely on face to face, doesn't rely on, like, it can be done no matter what happens, because there's a real possibility that you're back in school for a week, maybe two, especially because for a lot of folks in CCSD, you're going back after spring break. Yeah, 10 days after spring break, you can better believe we're probably going to see a spike. And then what's going to happen if you get sent back, or if you have to isolate, like, then what happens? You know, you want to make sure that you have this continuity. And the best way to do that, I think, although if you get sick, take care of yourself. You should not be working while you're sick. To have that continuity, or if kids get sick, like if a kid gets sick and has to stay home, you know, you don't want to have a situation, or maybe they don't get sick, but they have to isolate for a reason, or one reason or another. Like, build a system that is resilient no matter what the situation. And that's coming from a what do I do again? An infrastructure engineer, or whatever my title is.
Indeed. I mean, my thing was just like function over everything, right? Just get it. Create a system. Don't worry about how pretty the system is. Don't worry about it. Does it like shoot rainbows and fart sprinkles? Like, really, just here's my problem. Let me solve my problem as efficiently as possible right now, with the idea that August 2021 is coming. And that, to me, is the thing that we need to have people like start to think about. August 2021 is coming. What does August 2021 look like? How are you preparing right now for that? And not that you're going to go and say, whoa, Nelly, I don't care about what's happening right now. But how do you go and start testing the processes that you have to see what the flaws in your processes and your systems are now, so that they are perfected in August 2021, with the idea that there's a very, very high chance that either Google Classroom is going to be something that's severely frowned upon, or something that's completely turned off, and you're going to have to deal with Canvas as the primary mode of instruction, at least digitally. So kind of looking at it from that perspective, I think that will keep you insulated from having to go through the stress of trying to figure out what your systems are going to be when you should be relaxing this summer. Because Lord knows, we know that if you're a Clark County School District teacher, they're going to tell you 5 days before they plan their rollout, and suddenly you have to, if you don't have things planned, you have to pivot to this plan of these set of tools that are going to be problematic. I can tell you definitively right now that the Canvas is the Clark County School District's preferred learning management system. You can read into that what you will. I don't know what the deal with Google Classroom is going to be, but if I am you, I am planning on using Google Canvas as the primary means of me doing my job. The other thing is, if you haven't played with Clever offers a ton of very interesting things. I won't show you my Clever because it has student information in it, but very interesting stuff that you can do with Clever if you start to apply it as a single sign-on, but also a lot of the tools that people are using, Nearpod and Formative and Satori and some of the other tools we use, are available through Clever without students having to go anywhere else. So if you're looking at our very, very youngest learners, our pre-Ks, our kinders, and our first grade people, you might be able to circumvent Canvas by structuring your lessons in Clever. Just a thought. All right, Webbs, anything else?
I'm going to say the best compliment you can give us if you enjoyed this broadcast is to share it with a friend or tag them in the comments. It is the state LMS, which is, you know, and it's commonly used in higher ed as well, right? Yes. So it's worth learning how to use that LMS, even if it will change in the next 10 years or whatever. They at least get used to the idea and the concept. But yeah, I would say if you enjoyed this broadcast, the best compliment you can give us is to share it with a friend, either by sending it to them or sharing it in a social media group or over Twitter or Facebook or Twitch or YouTube, send it to them, or you can share it in a group, or you can tag them in the comments. So that would be our like the best thing you could do for us is share it with somebody you know. We also have a newsletter, a Hoodlum Culture newsletter, where we usually share a link to a past episode of Hoodlum Cultured, which is this show. We also share a strategy of the week usually. So if you're looking for a strategy of the week and other info about like events that might be going on for professional learning. Thank you, Taco Dog. And so you can sign up on our website, theintelligenthoodlums.com. I think it's under the newsletter tab or the contact us tab. So if you want to get that newsletter, we can do that. I can also share the most recent newsletter, actually, while Mike is sharing his final thoughts.
Facts. And just go out. And also the collaborative piece of the deal. What we have seen is like a lot of teachers starting to work, trying to not see the walls and start to see the highways between classrooms, and how different teachers can work together in order to build things that are far greater than they could build by themselves. So don't forget that even if we're going back to school, the internet gives us the ability to collaborate in real time anytime we would like. And my hope is that's one of the things that does not get lost and it's transitioning back to school. Some of the really cool projects I've done so far this school year have been with teachers who I have never physically been in the same presence with. And some of the ideas that I have stolen and adapted to my classroom have been stolen and adapted from people that I would not be able to pick out in a lineup. So definitely remember the fact that the internet doesn't have to divide us as it seems to do often, but it can unite us and can give us that spark of creativity that perhaps we are needing in our classrooms. And it can do the same for your students. No one said that your students that are working in the classrooms can't work with you or not there in a very meaningful, collaborative way, so that you don't have to go and physically be in proximity to every student. Those kids can really be doing some project-based learning and some challenge-based or problem-based or whatever you want to call them, based learning, where kids are going and having conversations online. I was on just a small anecdote before we leave. Third grade, I do at the end of the school day, and we're sitting in, and there's a kid who is not the most academically talented student, but at the end of the day, he always is like, "Hey, Mr. Lang, do you mind if I go and get a Among Us game started?" Nope, totally cool. Go do what you need to do. And so he goes through and he's like, "Hey, y'all want to play Among Us?" And every kid, yep. Send me the code. And the problem today was, how can we get the code out to people who are not on the meet? I said, you're going to have to email people. Well, I've never sent an email before. Well, this is the first email. So we pulled up his browser on the meet, and the subject is, do you want to play Among Us? And here's the code, whatever. He's into everybody in the classroom, sends the send button. Great. Now, problem, we want to play Among Us. He gets the code out there. The kids are playing the game. Now, didn't seem like a huge thing at the time, but then I was like, this is a kid who is an ELL student. It's a kid who is a couple grade levels below in terms of reading and writing, but he was able to compose an email, with some scaffolding that allowed him to go and get the desired result, which was playing Among Us with his people. And everybody's on the game and stuff. I jumped in for a second and I left because, they don't like the old people. They don't like the old people in their games because they talk about stuff and whatever. And I'm like, all right, fine. So they jump in the game, they playing the game and stuff like that. And I was really like, this kind of sucks that when they go back into school, they're not going to be able to do this anymore, right? Because there will be physically people at home that won't be readily available to play Among Us right when school ends anymore, which kind of broke my heart a little bit. But is what it is. Just don't forget the lessons we learned with distance learning when you go back in the classroom. All right. For Webs, I'm Mike. We will see you on Sunday at 6.
Sunday.
Indeed.
Bye, everybody.